Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
My friends and I always tune into the Todd Levitt Law Show. Todd is entertaining, informative, and always delivers the goods.
Todd might not tell you what you want to hear, but he's going to tell you what you need to hear. And all you got to do is listen.
Hold on, Todd. Don't let go. It's time for the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Marijuana Law Podcast. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting and podcasting once again in the Black Diamond Group mothership in the middle of the mitten in a beautiful green nutrient field. It is soaked. It is wet. We're trying to dry out. Apparently, the nutrient field, the plants that are growing, Craig Russell, have been around for 27.8 million years.
Wow.
How about that, my friend? The cannabis plant has been around for 27.8 million years. They say, whoever they are.
They can't even forecast the weather a day in advance. How do they know that the plants have been around for 27 million years?
They use, I believe, a molecular clock. Did I say that right? A molecular clock that allows them to estimate when cannabis and its sister species, hops, derived from a common ancestor. That's pretty interesting. Did you know that the sister species, Humulus, hops, diverged from a common ancestor? Hey, that's pretty cool.
I did not know that. You learn something new every day on this show. I'll tell you.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And hey, by the way, we are post July 4th, and it's the July 4th weekend. There's a lot of people out there traveling, heading home from the north, from the south, from the west, and heading east. So if you are traveling, just tuned in for the first time, I'm attorney Todd L. Levitt out of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, criminal defense attorney for more than 25 years, first 12 years in the city of Detroit, where I was born and raised. And I'm sitting here in the studio, the mothership, with my good friend, the handsome and talented Craig Russell, otherwise known as the Muscle. How you doing, Craig?
I'm doing fantastic. I still have all 10 of my fingers and all 10 of my toes. Nothing got blown off or anything, so that's all good. No firework injuries from the 4th. What'd you do to celebrate our nation's 243rd birthday?
Well, I've been just destroying Incognito with by Winger, Kip Winger, and that's why we opened up the show as promised last week. But the prior weekend, I was, as I said last week, I was at a Margie Giesecke mountain bike camp in the great state of Superior in Negaunee, Michigan. And I got to tell you, mountain biking through Negaunee and Ishpeming is and has been the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, it's harder than, wrestling when I was a kid in school. It's harder than the 2-a-day workouts as a football player for 6 years playing football in junior high and high school, where you'd have to show up in the morning, take your greasy pads, throw them in your locker, come back after lunch, put them back on, sweating on your sores and whatnot. There's nothing more difficult that I've ever attempted than that Margie Giesecke camp. Now, the Margie Giesecke is a race. It's a 100-mile race throughout that part of the state. It's put on by 906 Adventures, Todd Poquette and Danny Hill. Danny Hill designed all 72-plus miles of those single tracks out there. And the cool thing about Negaunee, Craig, is that the part where we're biking used to be the town. And at one point, 40, 50 years ago, because of the mining of all the iron ore, the ground started collapsing and they had to move the town away from where it currently is.
Oh, wow.
So and the earth overtook where the town was, but as you bike through these single tracks, aside from all the rocks and, just mountains sticking out at you, you see staircases and foundations of houses. It's so freaking cool. Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's the Ramba Trail system, and
that sounds really cool. Hey, are you still doing that videoing? You put that little GoPro camera on you while you're riding your bike and putting those up on YouTube? Are you still doing that?
I stopped doing the GoPro because when I'm GoProing, I'm thinking too much about the GoPro and not staying on the bike and not falling off and hitting my noggin. But it was a great camp, and my buddy Jan from the Sioux in Canada was there. He owns Belarusian Bike Shop. Jan's a great guy. So if anybody is listening to the show and you're from Ontario, make sure that you check out Belarusian Bike Shop there. My buddy Jan owns that, and he was one of the coaches. But it was a great time. Vinny was there. Everybody was there.
Oh, yeah, Vinny Kate. Mr. Big Shot Vinny Kate was there. Well, good job. What about Big Hair? Was Big Hair there as well?
Big Hair was busy shredding the sweat shaker on single speed.
Okay, right on. I got you. Well, that's good. I'm glad you had a good time, a good weekend. You still have all your fingers and toes. Nothing got blown off with fireworks or anything like that?
Nope, because everyone I was around was just using sparklers, Craig.
Oh,
there was no boomers.
That's probably not a bad thing. But anyway, happy 243rd birthday to our country. Happy 152nd to the neighbors to the north. The week, earlier this week, it was Canada Day. So they celebrated. And you know how they celebrated in Ontario? They had the world's largest human maple leaf. 3,942 people formed the world's largest human maple leaf in a town in Ontario. And that's how they celebrated Canada Day.
That's pretty cool. I love Canada.
Canada's really awesome. It's a good time.
Canada,
our neighbors to the north.
Craig, we have a huge show for the listeners today, and I mean, this show is going to be bigger than any show we've ever done by far.
Ever.
I mean, we have information. We're going to go around the world and talk about and update cannabis around the world. We have a cannabis report card where all the candidates stand who are running for the top office in our great country. We have information from the Dakotas, from Jersey.
And a reminder, of course, if you are driving home from the holiday weekend, please, we can't say this enough. Don't drink and drive. Don't operate your off-road vehicles while intoxicated, no matter what your intoxicating beverage or substance is. Please think about other people. Think about your families. Think about yourself. Don't risk it. It's not worth it. I know it's this time of year. It's, maybe every once in a while the sun will pop out and the rain will stop and you feel like having a couple of cold ones. Don't get behind the wheel no matter what the wheel is. Please be safe.
Yeah, especially boating, ORV. Yeah. Each and every year around this time of the year as a defense attorney, I represent individuals who are up in the great north where we live here in the middle of the Minton or even above the bridge, and they are charged with operating while intoxicated on an ORV, off-road vehicle, on a boat, or some other type of mechanical moving machine. So you definitely want to be careful. They're really dangerous. Boating is so dangerous. I mean, if I have one complaint right now, Craig, it's when I'm kayaking and I'm paddling on open water. I usually try to stay close to the shoreline.
Sure.
But every now and then you have some yin-yang who, in a boat or a jet ski, breaks that state of Michigan wake rule near the shoreline because boats and devices are supposed to stay so far off the shore and, away from all of the docks and whatnot. And every now and then as I'm hugging the shoreline, just, paddling along, enjoying the day, some idiot breaks that rule and just comes way too close to where I'm at, paying no attention whatsoever. And I always wear, bright yellow or orange when I'm out there paddling on open water. So, it's just ridiculous. It's so dangerous. Boating is so dangerous, especially people who don't know how to operate a boat. So, my advice is just a citizen, if you're going to allow someone to operate a boat who doesn't know what the heck they're doing, don't allow them to operate it in the first place. And absolutely do not allow anyone to operate, any of these boats or side-by-sides while intoxicated, especially if you're a passenger or even solo if they're going out by themselves.
And a reminder, if you do for some reason encounter a situation where you're either arrested or maybe somebody you know is, and you need some kind of legal representation, Todd is available, 989-772-6000. This is the kind of stuff he handles all the time. Call his office. If he can't help you, he can refer you to some of the best lawyers, not only in the state but in the country. Because this happens all over. I mean, Michigan is a big recreation state, but there are a lot of states, Wisconsin, Minnesota, places like that. Wisconsin, where they
I just want people to be safe out there.
Exactly.
Just be safe, because every week, you read the front of the paper or online or however or wherever you get your news, and you read about some tragic story that could have been prevented. And listen, we've all had friends and family, at least I have, who, have been involved in situations where, something bad has happened because someone was reckless. So especially on water. Again, I was paddling last week, and that was going to be my complaint on the show. Just everybody just slow frickin' down.
Yeah.
If you got a boat that has 124, horsepower outboard motor, and you're on an inland lake where there's kids and there's parents and families, you don't have to open it up all the way.
No.
Just take it easy. There's enough water and lakes, at least in the great state of Michigan, that you can take that boat and just crank it and spank it and open it up that way. But some of these inland, look, and I'm not saying it's abusive to the point where it's happening every day on every waterway, but I'm telling you, throughout the year, if I'm paddling, and I'm referring to kayaking on open water because I feel like it and I'm staying close to shore, it happens at least once each time I go out there.
Just be safe and just look out for your fellow man and take care of yourself and take care of other people. Just be a good person. How about that? Be a good person. Hey, we got to go to a break, Todd, but when we come back, we've got oodles of stuff to talk about, don't we?
Oodles.
Oodles and oodles. Matter of fact, we were talking about Canada a little bit ago. We will go to different countries around the world, and we'll find out where their stance is on cannabis and legalization, et cetera, et cetera. We'll do that when we come back on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting on every single platform across planet Earth. If you miss any portion of the show or you like the show and you want to tune into all the other hundreds of shows that we've done, you can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Podbean. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, Craig, and it's free. So be sure to check out the show if you like it.
And, of course, we're free on 98.5 UPS in Central and Northern Michigan. Of course, you can hear us everywhere. Basically, from about Lansing northward, you can hear us in the Lower Peninsula. We're pretty much everywhere. We cover 31 different counties, the largest landmass radio signal in the state of Michigan. So if you missed the show, go find the podcast. Maybe you like the podcast, you want to hear other episodes. We've got nearly 2 years of them up because we are one of the original marijuana law podcasts, if not the marijuana law podcast anywhere on the internet. And there's thousands of podcasts all over the place, but we're certainly a nail one, a big one.
That's a great transition, Craig.
Isn't it?
As far as we're one of the oldest marijuana podcasts, because we're here to talk marijuana, folks. In fact,
right.
More specifically, marijuana in Europe. And Craig, do you think marijuana in Europe is just as popular as it is in the rest of the world?
Well, I'm sure it's as popular. Whether it's as legal is another story, but I'm sure if it's maybe not even more popular, possibly.
Yeah, I would say that many European countries, they tolerate it. But for the most part, it's still illegal across most of the European continent. And we always hear about the EU, the European Union.
Right.
The European Union has tried to make uniform laws across Europe as it relates to all different types of laws and as such. But when it comes to cannabis, they haven't even touched it. So let's go around Europe and find out exactly where these different countries stand in relation to cannabis. So what do you want to start off with, Craig? Which amazing country do you want to start off with?
Let's start off with Portugal.
The great country of Portugal, and I love drinking port. Have you ever had a port?
I have never had port before. No, I have not.
Port is, I drink a port. It was a $40 shot glass size of port. It's made in Portugal. It's such a, try port. It's a drink that not too many of those out there have tried before, but it's a really interesting drink called port. So
okay.
But Portugal is one of those countries, such as the Netherlands, with relatively liberal drug laws, Craig. Narcotics, including cannabis, are decriminalized. Rehabilitation is preferable to prosecution in most cases, and those who are caught with small amounts of marijuana will face what they call a commission of drug addiction. It's a panel made up of 3 members of the legal, medical, and social care professions that try to help individuals with different drug addictions and issues. Now, not necessarily marijuana, but other types of narcotics. But there might be a fine for repeat offenders. But Portugal has more relaxed laws on cannabis consumption for sure. Now, cultivation is completely illegal and could be punishable by imprisonment. So again, if you go to one of these countries, we're not recommending you do anything without first checking and being sure exactly what the laws are.
Okay, so we were talking about Portugal there, and you brought up the Netherlands. The Netherlands is another country where they have a pretty liberal look at drug use, although it's not fully legalized there. Marijuana is decriminalized in the Netherlands, meaning you can only be prosecuted under certain circumstances. Now, I don't know that much about whether or not cultivation, you can grow it, or selling or anything like that. But, other things are pretty liberal there in the Netherlands. Of course, there's lots of things that are illegal in other parts of the world, including the United States, are pretty open-minded. They're pretty open-minded about things there in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam, et cetera, et cetera. What's another country where things are pretty liberal? Is there anything else? Is that pretty much it for the liberalism of the EU?
No, Switzerland. Unlike neighboring France and Germany, marijuana is legal and readily available in Switzerland for medicinal use, at least, Craig.
Okay.
So I've heard from people that have been to Switzerland, you walk down any Swiss street and you'll pass a number of pharmacies and head shops that are selling weed and smoking supplies. From my understanding, Switzerland is extremely liberal, but I think there's a catch in it that the legal strains all contain less than 1% THC. So I'm not sure. You're unlikely to get high off less than 1% THC. It sounds more like a CBD country to me. But things are moving in the right direction. What do you have on Germany, Craig?
Across Germany, the law is pretty flexible, all things considered. Medicinal marijuana has been legal for a couple of years, and the number of registered patients is on the rise there. Although unauthorized possession, supply, and cultivation is still against the law. You might not be prosecuted if you get caught there with a small amount of cannabis. They will kind of look the other way for some of that stuff. What constitutes a small amount? If you have probably between 6 and 15 grams on you, that's what they consider a small amount. So almost sounds kind of like how things are in the United States. Countries where there's medicinal marijuana, or states where there's medicinal marijuana, and recreation hasn't been legalized, but maybe they're kind of looking the other way and they're not nearly as strong about Switzerland. Hey, what about some of the countries that a lot of Americans will go for vacations, especially winter holidays, places like Spain and France? How is it there?
Well, this is what kind of gets my crawl. France literally has some of the strictest marijuana laws in Europe, and the penalties for being caught with cannabis range anywhere from, I believe, a drug awareness course to prison time up to a year for personal use. And what I don't understand is, and I've never been to France, but France is, very artsy. And throughout the centuries, you've had painters and sculptors and musicians all traveling and staying in France to perfect their art. And you think for a second that these people weren't smoking? I mean, some of the greatest conductors and music creators were probably high when they wrote and conducted the music that we still listen to this day. I mean, we can go down the list. I mean, we're a rock and roll station. I mean, we can just go off on all the music people were probably toking and smoking when they were writing and producing what they did. But how can France have some of the strictest laws and they have all that history of art? I don't get it. But what about Spain?
Well, Spain is another one of those countries that a lot of Americans will go to for vacations and holidays. Drug laws there are somewhat complicated. Public cannabis consumption is considered a serious order offense. That means it could turn into a hefty fine between 601 and 30,000 euros. Private marijuana use and cultivation in a private space is legal, though, and the possession of a small amount generally goes unpunished. So it's kind of odd. Officially, you're not allowed to do it, but unofficially, it's kind of just looked, by the side. And that's the weird thing about Europe is Europe generally is looked to be as more liberal with things. You can watch TV from Europe and there'll be nudity and stuff. And kids drink a lot earlier. You can have wine. 12-year-olds will have wine in places like France. Yet things like this, which is kind of goes right along with a lot of that stuff, it seems like it's more serious offenses. I don't understand how they can be so liberal on some things, yet not on others.
Great points. Exactly. Now, Italy, somewhat confusing to me, and it was one of the most confusing countries where my people are from. It is legal to sell weed with a low THC content. It is legal to sell weed with a low THC content, get this, under 0.2%. And there are cannabis stores on some of the major streets in Italy. It's similar to Switzerland where, the THC level is so freaking low. For whatever reason, it is still illegal to consume marijuana in any way, and the products sold in these shops are marketed as collector's items only. It makes no sense.
You can sell it, but you can't use it.
It makes no... I'm going to have to do some further research into this, but it can be prescribed for medicinal purposes, though, in Italy. I do know that. What really confuses me is these low THC contents. 0.2%. And what was Switzerland? What did we say Switzerland was? I mean, it was really low. Less than 1% THC.
Right. So that's so strange. I mean, if you could sell these low-grade versions of cannabis, yet you can't use it, that doesn't make any sense at all.
No sense at all. No. Hey, what do you have for the UK?
Well, England and the United Kingdom, of course, that's Ireland and Scotland. They're really getting close to making major changes. A lot of high-profile cases have been brought up for the medicinal benefits in the public eye there in England and in places Scotland, Ireland, et cetera, et cetera. Cannabis is now available as a medicine for those holding a special license. The first UK medical dispensary just recently opened in Cheadle. That's in the greater Manchester area. But according to current UK marijuana laws, being caught with a small amount will still lead you to seizure and a warning. A second offense could cause a fine. Third, you could get prison time. Think about all the famous rock stars from England, Mick Jagger, John Lennon, people like that who all have been caught with marijuana over the years. Eric Clapton, David Bowie, who've been caught and arrested. Paul McCartney with having marijuana in England. So it seems like they're becoming more progressive when it comes to cannabis in Europe. So that's a look at how Europe handles cannabis. What about in the United States? Of course, it is our nation's birthday this holiday week. What about places like New Jersey? You said you had something about New Jersey?
Yeah, kudos to New Jersey. Just this past week expanded its medical marijuana program, including increasing the number of illnesses that are eligible for cannabis use under a new law that was signed by the governor last Tuesday. So kudos to Governor Phil Murphy in the great state of New Jersey. I have a lot of ancestors that live in New Jersey to this very day, and I know they're there. So shout out to New Jersey. And Craig, how about the Dakotas? North Dakota's on the move right now. And a group, last year pushed to legalize cannabis, and it got voted down by the voters. And when I saw that, I was wondering, what? A group that actually got the citizens to vote on legalized cannabis got turned down, or the bill, or the initiative, I should say, because at the time, the initiative did not install any regulatory systems, licensing rules, taxation levels, possession limits, and nearly 60% of the voters rightfully rejected it. So now they got together, redid the initiative, and hopefully this time, if it moves forward, it has all of those and more included in it so that people can take a good look to see how the program will work in the great state of North Dakota.
Well, that's some of the stuff that we talk about on a regular basis, not only about, being able to have your own personal choice and make your own decisions and about the medicinal benefits, but how the money ends up being a part of it. Some places, like we were talking about last week in Illinois, where they just legalized recreational marijuana, it's going to generate $2-3 billion in tax revenue. Places like a small state like North Dakota, which doesn't need a lot of money, that might not be necessarily the biggest selling point, is the financial situation. There's a lot of oil, a lot of gas that comes out of North Dakota. The unemployment rate is so low. Cost of living is reasonably low. So the financial aspects might not be the best judgment of whether or not they should legalize things in North Dakota. They're going to have to come up with another angle if they're going to really want it to get it passed. Other places, and we will talk about this coming up, we'll talk about some of the financial aspects of marijuana in this country. Cannabis use is on the rise, and the money is following it. We have to take a break on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, but we'll get to all that when we come back. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show on this post-July 4th weekend. Everybody is traveling, they're moving, they're in planes, trains, automobiles, drones, clones, and phones. I don't know what rhymes, I just had to say that. But everybody's traveling, hopefully safely, not distracted after a holiday July 4th week and weekend, and depending upon what part of the country you live in, either you got soaked and continue to get soaked because the rain in the great state of Michigan has just been pouring down every other day. It's ridiculous. And that's not good for the farmers out there who farm all different types of crops, not just hemp, but all different types of crops. It's just not good from what I understand.
In some parts of the country, there's been a lot of rain all across the country. In some parts, it has been a godsend because they've been under drought conditions for the past few years, including places like California. The rain has helped keep the wildfires down early on in the season. And did you know this 4th of July holiday weekend, there is actually a place in the United States you can ski right now. Did you know that, Todd?
Let me take a guess where that might be.
Take a guess.
There's a place in the United States right now where you could ski.
Yep.
My guess is Alaska.
You are incorrect.
What are you talking about? I'm incorrect. Well, okay, give me another shot at this.
I'll give you a shot. It is one of the 11 legalized cannabis states.
Vermont.
Oregon. One more. Try more. One more. Oregon.
Oregon. Washington. Mount Hood.
Colorado. Colorado.
Where? A Basin? Where are you going to ski in?
Colorado.
Where?
About 60 miles west of Denver. Last week, they got nearly 3 feet of snow on one of the mountains, one of the higher elevations.
What radar are you watching?
I'm watching the Weather Channel, man. I saw this story on the Weather Channel. 3 feet of snow.
You believe everything you see on TV, Craig? There's no way.
I don't believe everything I read on the internet, but I believe a lot of things I see on TV, especially on the Weather Channel. They had footage of it. There are people skiing this 4th of July weekend just west of Denver, about 60, 70 miles west of Denver, the mountain range.
I don't buy it.
Got a whole lot of snow, but that's what has happened to all this rain, and in that area, it's turned into snow because of the high.
That makes sense. I get that. No, it makes sense. I get that.
The higher elevations in Colorado.
Higher elevation. Speaking of cannabis across this great country of ours,
yes.
As of 2019, whoever they are, states that cannabis has created more than 211,000 full-time jobs in America. And they say, you ready for this?
Okay.
That with the opening of more and more state legal markets, that cannabis sales are quickly catching up with some of those more established products and brands and services. And there's companies out there that compile data in regards to this, and the data shows that the cannabis industry is now equal as far as employment to the 6th largest food chain, one of my all-time favorites, Taco Bell. That's right, Taco Bell. I'll have a number 10 minus the nacho cheese, please. That would be a Crunchwrap Supreme, Craig.
Wow, I do the nachos grande minus the guacamole, but
I'm ready for a bean burrito right now, my friend.
That is a lot of. Well, that's what we were talking about, the financial aspects. In some places, it's not as big of a deal, but man, that's a lot of full-time employment, and it's only going to keep getting bigger. The sales of cannabis have reached nearly $10 billion in the United States last year.
That's unbelievable.
$10 billion. Think about that. That's up from $6.7 billion from just a year ago.
For those of you in power in the townships and in the cities and communities and on the boards and councils, and whereby the majority of the people voted for recreational cannabis in whichever state you live in, but yet you're holding on to power and you're holding back the will of the people, as often happens in politics when the minority tries to control the majority of us. You see what you're missing out on right now? Your poor and desperate communities could gain not only from taxes, your citizens could have employment, you can improve your roadways and your schools and your bridges and your parks from allowing these licenses and businesses to enter into your communities. What's really upsetting to me, Craig, is across the great state of Michigan, there's still a number of communities that just refuse to opt in and allow for, medical marijuana licenses. And not to mention those that have allowed medical marijuana licenses are now turning their backs and refusing to allow recreational licenses to take place in these communities. We had attorney Scott Roberts on here a few weeks back, and he's going to be joining the mothership here the next week or two to update the listeners on where Michigan stands on all the new rules and regulations in regards to recreational cannabis. So stay tuned to the show for that for sure.
Well, and the thing that I don't get is, go around to some of these communities who don't want any kind of this cannabis money. They don't want it. They're obviously saying we don't need it. Yet think about all the taxes they collect on liquor licenses and liquor stores. Think about some of the communities that have casinos. Now those casinos, they'll take a good chunk of the money that they make in. Some of them go, of course, back to the tribe, like the casino in Mount Pleasant, the Soaring Eagle. A lot of that funds a lot of the tribe, but they also give back a big chunk of money to the community.
The tribe gives a ton of money to the
millions
local schools, the community. They have done so much good for our community. Big shout out to the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort and the Saginaw Chippewa Tribe of Michigan, Saginaw Indian Chippewa Tribe of Michigan, who, by the way, have invited the 420 Canna Hemp Expo back in 2020. So the 420, nice transition there.
That was great.
The 420 Canna Hemp Expo will be coming back to the casino on April 18th to celebrate 420 next year. So stay tuned for all that information, because if you missed last year's show, this year's show, is already turning out to be twice the size. So I'm stoked about that.
It's going to be big. But there's the point. Those communities aren't going to turn down that money, the casino money, and so why would they want to not take advantage of this? Try and tell me that there isn't a road in any county in the state of Michigan, all 83 counties. Tell me there isn't at least one road that could be used to be repaved. And what kind of money would you spend to use to repave that road? Hey, how about money you collect from taxes on cannabis? Yeah, is it going to be $1 billion for each county? No. But if it was $10 million a county, if you had 2 or 3 dispensaries and you sold a lot of product and you collected $1 million in taxes, think about the roads you could fix. Think about how many more kids you could buy school lunches for. Think about all of those kind of things, and then try and look somebody in the eye and say, no, we don't want something that is legal in the state and is already being used in our county. We don't want to take any advantage of it, or in our township or in our area. We don't want to take advantage of it. That's somebody else's problem. Whatever.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Sorry, you got me a little fired up, But
fire up. Hey, fire up chips. No, stay fired up. Big shout out to the women's soccer team, the United States women's soccer team.
Yes.
Just destroying the World Cup. And, I loved playing soccer when I was a kid. But I'm so proud of the women.
They're playing right now. They're playing as we speak, or will be starting very shortly. So they're taking on, I don't even know who they're taking on at this point, but they're playing in the World Cup final for the third World Cup in a row. So congratulations to them. They're killing it.
Hey, Craig, we mentioned at the beginning of the show the cannabis report card.
Yes.
And where some of the current candidates stand in regards to ending, federal prohibition and support federal legalization of cannabis. And Leafly has a great article on this. So check out Leafly.com, everybody, Leafly.com for the cannabis report card. But just to talk about a few of the more high-profile candidates who were attending these debates over the last couple weeks, Joe Biden, where do you think he stands on supporting federal legalization of cannabis, Craig?
Probably kind of leans toward it, but wouldn't be shocked if he was against it.
My understanding is, he supported a lot of legislation over the last 30, 40 years, that toughened our laws across this country.
Okay.
And my understanding is that he does not support a federal legalization of cannabis in regards to changing the laws. What about Cory Booker?
Hold on. Before you get to Cory Booker, hold on. I'm going to say this. We're not a political show by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Joe Biden's got a lot more things to worry about than his views on legal cannabis in this country. I think he might have a little more of an issue after some of those. Did you watch any of those debates? Did you get a chance to see any of it?
We are not a political show. We're not Republicans or Democrats. We're Americans.
That's right.
In regards to informing the public in regards to cannabis and where individual stands, what the laws are, and what's happening around the world, I just thought this would be interesting and important, though, for the listening audience.
Totally is. It was hard to watch those debates. They were kept yelling over top of each other.
I can't watch honestly. I can't watch politicians because they just drive me freaking crazy.
I know.
I feel one that there should be term limits on a federal level. If we have it at the state level, it should absolutely be at the federal level. And I want to see the system set up so that my truck driving friends who drive trucks across this great country of ours that move commerce, have an opportunity if they want to run for office. They don't need millions and millions and millions of frickin' dollars, to put together an organization to obtain office. I want to see, the single father, the iron worker, the nurse, the school teacher. I want to see the people have an opportunity to take office, because that's not how the system is set up.
No,
it's set up for those who have money.
Career politicians.
And how are we a democracy when we have a two-party system? I never understood that. The Democrats and Republicans control all the politics in this country. And I'm not knocking Democrats and or Republicans. I'm a big fan of Ronald Reagan, George Bush, just John McCain. I'll just tell you where I stand. But, I just don't understand it. My buddy Biker Bob, I love Biker Bob.
Sure.
He's just such a smart guy. I'd love to put him in the United States Senate because he's a real person. He has worked hard. He's fought to raise a family. He's grinded it out, in the ditch. He's the kind of guy that you want to see in the U.S. Senate. I don't see anybody in the United States Senate like my good friend Biker Bob or some of these hardworking men and women that I represent every day.
Well, he's a real person. That's exactly it. He's not a career politician.
But my point is the system isn't set up for the real person.
Not at all.
And then these people get elected, and what do they have to do? They toe the party line.
Yep.
That's all they do.
Nope. All right, so
because they're so concerned about getting reelected.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, some people start their reelection campaign the day after they win the election. I'm not going to say names or anything, but let's go back to Cory Booker. I'm assuming the majority of these Democratic candidates are probably going to be for legalization, but maybe you will surprise me. I would imagine Cory Booker is.
Cory Booker, absolutely, yeah. He's all for supports federal legalization in regards to cannabis. And early on, he was as well. So Julian Castro, another individual who supports federal legalization.
Okay.
But you know what's interesting?
He did really well at the debates. He made a name for himself at that debate.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much.
Beto O'Rourke, yes, he supports the end of federal prohibition as well. Tim Ryan from Ohio. He also, Bernie Sanders, of course.
Sure.
Eric Swalwell, yes. But I got to give kudos to, all the Republican governors out there because, some of the Republican governors, these are where oversaw the first states that approved, recreational legalization of cannabis.
Sure.
And some of the Republican senators, look at what happened in Kentucky. Look at Senator Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul. What an outstanding job they did in a great state of Kentucky. And pushing forth legislation to remove hemp from the Controlled Substance Act. So you got a lot of Republican governors out there, a lot of Republican senators who have done amazing things that have allowed the people to their voices to be heard. So I'm stoked about that.
It'll be interesting to see where everyone falls when we start getting seriously. 20 candidates right now. I think there's actually more than that. But when they start, all of a sudden, they start falling down like flies, and we're down to 3 or 4 Democratic candidates and then the current president. We'll see how that all starts to kind of shake out. But, hey, we got to take one more break on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We will be back to wrap the show up after this. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Days undercover, all out of sync. Haven't paid the rent, even talking in my sleep. My monkey's MO is all out of commission. I'm waiting for a good old-fashioned cure for my condition. 'Cause I'm all out of chum, and I'm all out of money. Hanging down incognito, waiting for the sun to shine.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Wishing everyone a happy post 4th of July in the mothership in a beautiful green nutrient field with my good friend Craig Russell, the Muscle. Craig, water is wet, the sky is blue, and you know that we love you.
Oh, God, not this again. I'm telling you.
Yep, you got it again. A poem from attorney Todd L. Levitt to my good friend Craig Russell, the Muscle, sitting here in the mothership with me on a beautiful post-July 4th weekend. Everybody's traveling, listening to the show, thinking, what the heck, and who are these guys?
Why aren't they playing some Eagles, man? Get some music on.
Nah, we're playing Kip Winger today. Incognito. That song just destroys it, and we're definitely going to be playing Winger at our 1980s dance party. You know that's for sure.
You know, it's awesome. Think about some of the best bands that came out of like the 70s and 80s. Van Halen, Winger. They're all named after people. Who in the world, when Kip Winger was growing up, you wonder if somebody said to him, hey, man, you'd have a great name to name a band after. And he went, ooh, that's a good idea. That's really weird. Kip Winger, insurance agent. No, he's going to
John
band. Yeah, exactly.
John Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi's another good example.
Who else? Who else is
Van
out there? You've been in
Halen.
radio your whole life.
Eddie
You're
Van
80 years old.
Halen.
Eddie Van Halen.
Van Halen's another great name like that. I mean, it's funny, some of those names you just go, they're so iconic with rock and roll music, and you think, man, what if Eddie Van Halen's name would have been, I don't know, Eddie Dweeball or something like that. You're not naming a band Dweeball, but Van Halen works.
Van Halen. Does that mean you're going to go see Cher in concert, Craig?
No, that's not a band.
That's a one-word singer. I'm just saying Cher.
So is Madonna, and I'm not going to see Madonna in concert either.
Are we playing Madonna? Someone asked me if we're going to be playing Madonna at our 1980s dance party.
Might have to. It's not disco, but it's dance music.
I don't know. If we're going to play Madonna, we're only playing one Madonna song.
Yeah.
It's Like a Virgin.
Sure.
That's the only song we're playing.
And the remix version with, the
Like
wiki,
a Virgin.
wiki. The remix version where it's got an extended dance mix and stuff.
I never played Madonna on any of my tunage unless you just happen to be popping up on the radio. But Madonna's from Rochester, Michigan, and we support all Michigan. Think of all the artists that are from Michigan. We have Madonna.
Oh, I know.
Bob Seger.
Yep.
Eminem.
Yep.
Kid Rock.
Yep.
One of my all-time favorite legend heroes, Uncle Ted Nugent, who we got to get on the show.
Uncle Ted.
I love Uncle Ted.
You do know
Period.
if we ever got Ted Nugent on this show, it basically you wouldn't be talking at all. You do realize that, right?
I used to appear. Ted Nugent had a radio show in the 90s.
Yep.
In a show out of Detroit. I was on his show. He brought me on. I'm not sure if he would remember me, but I recall calling his place in Jackson, and I thought his wife's name was Cindy. I could be wrong, or his assistant. But I used to call over there. He said, "Yeah, Todd, just call over here, and we'll figure out when we're doing the show again and have you on." I was a brand new attorney. Uncle Ted is my hero for a multitude of reasons.
I mean, there's a lot of great artists that come from Michigan and a lot of iconic names.
Who else? Who else you got?
The MC5, Iggy Pop from Michigan.
Yep, all the Motown.
Everybody Motown, Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, the Supremes, Diana Ross. Did I say Stevie Wonder? I think I said Stevie Wonder.
Mitch Ryder.
Mitch Ryder in the Detroit Wheels.
Mitch Ryder.
That's right. Mitch Ryder in the Detroit Wheels.
Big Hair playing the role of Bob Seger because Big Hair looks like Bob Seger.
What about El DeBarge? Remember DeBarge from Grand Rapids? There, another one. Del Shannon. Del Shannon, who did The Wanderer. You know that. It's a famous 50s and 60s.
Oh, yeah. I remember that song.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot.
Wait. I went to Berkeley High, and we had, what was that guy's name from Berkeley High? Marshall Crenshaw, I think, went to Berkeley High, my alma mater.
Yep, that was another big one. Of course, Grand Funk Railroad, Mark Farner and the guys from Flint. That's another big name, too.
Oh, yeah. There was some great musicians from Flint.
And the new guys on the block, Greta Van Fleet from Frankenmuth. They're another big one, too.
I thought you were going to say the new kids on the block.
No, they're from Boston. No, Greta Van Fleet. Those guys are huge right now. Those guys are out on tour. They're big, man. Another big one is Pop Evil. Those guys are from Muskegon. They're big, too. I mean, there's a lot of great music that comes out of Michigan.
How about the guys? Yeah, how about the guys from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, the drummers from Michigan?
Yep, Anthony Kiedis, he's from Grand Rapids.
Anthony Kiedis, yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yep. What about Jason Newsted? He used to play with Metallica. He's from
don't even start with Metallica. I'm going to have to be blowing up Metallica called mandatory Metallica all day here in my noggin. What about Derek Jeter?
Derek Jeter. Yeah, big. And of course, all the sports stars that are from Michigan. I mean, come on. Yeah,
Derek Jeter was on the Yankees.
Yeah, I know. I'm well aware.
He's not a rock star, but in my eyes, he is. And he's from what, Kazoo or Battle Creek?
From Kalamazoo. Yeah.
And he went to Michigan.
Yeah. No, he didn't. He didn't go to school.
Yeah, he did. He played for Michigan for a year.
No, he didn't. He went right to the minors.
No, he didn't. He went for Michigan for a year.
Would you like to bet? He did not play for Michigan.
I don't bet. Craig, Derek Jeter, I'm telling you.
He might have gotten recruited, but he didn't play there.
Okay, he earned a scholarship to attend Michigan. Let me stand corrected.
Hold on.
He never played for them. That's the truth.
Earned a scholarship to attend university to play college baseball, but he decided to go play for the Yankees.
Craig, great show.
Show's over, Todd. We got to get going.
We got to go. Everybody have a safe trip home. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Take us out with some Kip Winger. Incognito. I'm not just a litigator. I'm an advocator. See ya.
Haven't paid the rent, even talking in my sleep. My
Todd L. Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Chad Mallywell Drilling of Rosebush, Clark Modular Homes, your most experienced and trusted builder in Mount Pleasant, Clear Vision Windows, Siding, Roofing, and Attic Installation of Midland, Mackinac Properties, and Northern Michigan Vacation Rentals, buying, selling, and renting properties in the Straits of Mackinac region since 1998. Tim's Collision Plus in Roscommon, Harrison Power Sports, Central Michigan's fastest growing full-line Arctic cat dealer, and Dr. Robert Townsend and Denali Healthcare for your alternative healthcare needs.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.